What's up, everyone? This is Vin from the Diamond Geezers, your Gangrene Geezer, here with episode 32 of the Gangrene Geezer podcast. I want to thank everybody for liking and subscribing. Please hit that subscribe button so you'll keep these videos coming up in your algorithm, and you'll also make it'll rise to other Jet fans who are interested in also seeing this content. So we're going to jump right into this, go over what we're going to talk about today. Just sort of put this up here. Here we go. These are the topics we'll cover. Engstrand out as offensive coordinator for the Jets. The Jets hire a new defensive coordinator. They also interviewed 5 offensive coordinator candidates virtually this week. We'll go over those. The Gruden rumors, that was all the buzz this past week as well. And, as I said, mock draft season is here and mock draft season continues. I apologize, everybody. I'm a little bit under the weather. Also, watching out for any kind of breaking news might be popping over the phone here. So here we go. Get this off my screen here for a second, fellas. Here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about here, as I said, Engstrand out as the offensive coordinator for the Jets. Look, man, I don't care. I don't care that they did this. I know that they were, and I don't think a lot of people do care that the Jets have done this. I think people are more upset, and this is kind of was my perspective as well. It's how you're doing it. It's not what you're doing. It's the way you're going about doing it. That is just, it's embarrassing, quite frankly. And it makes you think, what has Aaron Glenn been told? What has AG been told? At first, you see, okay, he gets rid of Wilkes. It makes total sense. Then he guts just about all the coaches. Obviously, he wasn't going to get rid of Banjo, and he keeps Engstrand. Engstrand had some, there was some promising numbers that people have cited over the past week. But let's think about how that season went. Yeah, I know the quarterbacks were bad. I'm not holding them accountable for that. But how many times are we screaming at the TV during the season to get Breece Hall more involved, get him the ball more? It does not take a Hall of Fame quarterback to be under center, or even a competent quarterback to know that. If you see the plays being called for that in that way, and they're just not executing, that's a whole different discussion. But there were many times, and I watched every one of the games, suffered through every one of them as I do every year. And there were times you're just, where's Breece? Why are you not trying to scheme the ball to your best players? So that, I don't really have a problem. I know people are citing numbers that he was promising, potentially promising. But at the end of the day, look, maybe AG was told, and again, this is just a bad look. If he would have just done this when the season ended, because your season ended while it was still going on. So if you had a plan, this is something you should have been planning. You should have already been planning to what was you going to be in next moves? Who was out? Who was staying? Who are you going to target? Now, look, we also know they're not getting the pick of the litter. There were 10 head coaching vacancies this year. All of them had to fill their coaching staffs. And the Jets would have been, I think there's the 2 jobs still open. I think of the Raiders and it's not Cleveland, Arizona. They get the 2 jobs still open. And looks like Clint Kubiak from Seattle will get one of those jobs once the Super Bowl ends. So if the Jets would have fired Glenn, they would have got some sort of also-ran or somebody not really, another first-year guy, or they'd be sitting there just like those teams are, waiting to see who's left when the music stops that's going to have that coaching chair. I have no problem with what they've done. I just don't like the way they did it. It just comes off as completely incompetent. It looks like you don't have any plan. You're saying you have a plan. You've said it numerous times. But if this is it, I want to show me the plan. Show me. Or at least don't have to show me the plan, because I'm not even sure if you have one. But just walk me through how you got to what you're doing. Because it can't be this. You couldn't have said, okay, we'll fire the defensive coordinator. Then we'll fire almost all of the coaches. 3 weeks after the season ended. And then we'll fire. We said we're going to keep the offensive coordinator, but we're going to, whoever we hire as a potential consultant or as a new offensive coordinator, but that person, then Engstrand gets demoted. I know they said they mutually parted. He was let go. I mean, he might have told him to stick it. Who knows? But does that sound like a plan? No, it doesn't. Here's the plan. Fired Wilkes, ended this before the season's over. You know exactly which coaches are staying and which ones are going. Boot the ones that are going. Now you know who you're going forward with and plan accordingly. The key word there is plan. Now, this now reeks of is people are saying, is Woody somehow getting involved here with, is he did he tell Glenn at one point, no matter what, you'll be back in 2027, no matter what happens in 26, or did he flip it and say, you know what, no matter what happens, or I need to see market improvement or you're gone. So now if it's the second one, the latter here that Aaron Glenn is operating under, you could see why he would change gears, because now I'm sitting there saying, okay, if I really have one more year to show market improvement, I'm going to take as much control over the defense as possible, which means I potentially need a more experienced play caller running my offense. So, and we'll get into the new defensive coordinator, Brian Duker, next in the next topic. But just, again, I don't care that he's out. I just hate the way they're operating. They look like they don't know what they're doing. I'm praying some sort of scandal hits Woody that forces Goodell to just take a vote and say, you got to go. You got to get out of here. We have no time for this. You're bringing, you're hurting the logo. You're hurting the brand. Sell the team. Something along those lines. Because if Woody did tell Aaron Glenn, I want to see market improvement, or you're done, what kind of what coaches are you going to get? What kind of staff are you going to get if they know I might be out of a job in a year? Unless you're out where you currently are, or you don't have a job, a la Frank Reich, then you will maybe risk it. But if you have other options, this is, being with potentially a lame duck head coach is not a option that's attractive to most coaches anybody would want. So we'll see who they hire as the offensive coordinator. We'll touch upon that next. But the Jets now hired a new defensive coordinator, Brian Duker. The history there is he coached with Glenn when they were at Detroit. He was the passing game coordinator with the Dolphins. So that's where it was previously. You could see obviously you could just see this. This all starts to come together now. You fire Engstrand, you bring in this guy Duker. Okay, if AG is going to be calling more of the plays or taking more of the reins of the play calling on the defensive side, it makes sense that you bring in a guy like Duker. The rumor was, all the reporting is, that Wink Martindale had all but accepted the job, was already filling out the rest of his staff, showed up for his in-person interview, and was told by Aaron, I'm taking more of the reins of the play calling. If that actually happened, look, again, nobody else was coming after Wink Martindale. So let's not make it seem like this was the hot new defensive coordinator that we had to have and we had to get. Nobody else. Michigan's didn't want to retain him. So nobody was breaking down the doors for him. This guy hasn't had, really great defenses or top-ranked defenses since his days with the Ravens. But at least he was experienced and potentially could have, jump-started this defense. But I don't care. Again, I do not care that they didn't hire him. What I care is how it looks, how you did it. He was all but hired. He's coming in for his in-person interview, and then the rug's pulled out from under him. Because what happened in between him getting on that plane and then him showing up in Florham Park for his in-person interview, or whatever the hell he went to do it? Something obviously happened. Again, not a great look for the way things are running at this point. And at the end of the day, if you start turning it around and this upcoming season is we could see it as successful. Nobody's going to give a shit about everything we're talking about right now. But this is what we're dealing with right now. And right now, bringing in, again, Jets organization, bringing in all your history of ineptitude, specifically under Woody Johnson's ownership. And now coming off an historically bad season, even for the Jets. And now the way you're operating in this offseason makes it look like you're just, hopping from one. It's like hot potato. Okay, we're going to do this. Oh, nope. Now we're going to do this. Oh, no. Now it's, what are you doing? What are you doing? A plan is a plan. It's a plan. I mean, there's steps to your plan. At least when I make plans, that's what I do. There's steps to my plans. Now, can you veer off of that plan? Of course. Nothing's set in stone, but you usually don't do it at the onset of the plan. You just started. You're rolling out your new plan, and already it's like on an Etch-a-Sketch. Here's the plan. Okay, here we go. We got a new plan. Here we go. We got another plan. You look totally inept to forget about you. You've already looked that way towards the people who cover the sport and the fans. Now, even people who I know they're not really football fans look at me and say to me, "What are they doing? What are they doing?" I said, "I don't know. Just because I do a podcast about them doesn't mean I know the inner workings of the insanity that goes on in their headquarters. I have no idea why they do what they do, but we'll see. Duker is essentially going to be he's going to run in lockstep with Aaron Glenn. He's not. Wink would have been a strong personality, wanting to do things his own way, just like any other experienced coordinator would. So you bring in a guy who you know how he works. He knows how you work, and he might have already told him, "Look, man, if we don't improve this season enough to come back for 2027, we're all out of here." Who knows? Who the heck knows what's going on at this point? The offensive coordinators, excuse me, again, I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I don't know how I'm sounding right now. But you have Greg Roman, Darrell Bevell, Ronald Curry, Frank Reich, and Lunda Wells. Step back, folks. That's not exactly the murderer's row of offensive coordinators. So here we go. We'll dive into a few of these. Just a quick summary of them. The guys who've done this before, the immediate structure obviously is Greg Roman and Frank Reich. They've done it before. There's the experience there. So has Darrell Bevell, and he's a little more, got a veteran balance to him. The guy who I like in terms of he's a little more modern in his play calling style. Well, in his play calling style would be a little more modern. Which is his passing game influences are more modern. He's known for developing receivers. He's been a rising coach in the Saints ranks, and that's Ronald Curry. Do I think Ronald Curry is going to get the job? I actually hope he does. I hope he does, because the problem I get why you'd want to bring in a more experienced coordinator like Frank Reich or Darrell Bevell or Greg Roman, because if you're going to be not CEOing the team anymore, Aaron, but you're going to be really overseeing the defense, you would need someone with more experience, you would think, running your offense. But at the same time, what you don't want to do is bring in people who are going to bring in stale concepts, stale offensive packages, just nothing forward thinking. At least Ronald Curry he's known for being again, modern passing game influence. So he would bring hopefully a more modern, dare I say, 2000s look to forget about 2020s. 2000s will take. We're running, the way we run an offense, it looks like something I used to run in the street in the Bronx as a kid growing up. You go here, you go here. That's what it looks like they do. There's no creativity at all to anything they've done. Again, that's why I don't care that Engstrand's gone. I don't care if the quarterbacks were inept. Call the plays and we'll just see how inept they look. But when you're not even calling them, it makes us all wonder, do you really know what you're doing? Do you have the guts to even call these plays? And you can't have someone that's timid in this day and age. So I'm hoping that Ronald Curry gets the position only because of he'll bring a more modern or Lunda Wells from tight end centric. He's known for his physical offensive philosophy. He's known for developing tight ends. But he has no offensive play calling experience that falls under. Curry has limited experience calling plays at the NFL level. Lunda has none, but because Lunda Wells is more to Engstrand, so that might not be the route you want to go. He's a little more developmental from a play call perspective. My vote is for Ronald Curry. I hope Ronald Curry gets the position of offensive coordinator for the Jets. That's my vote. From everything you're hearing, it should be Frank Reich. But then again, a week ago, from everything we were hearing, it should have been Wink Martindale as defensive coordinator. So, speaking of offensive coordinators, the John Gruden rumors. Well. I had people coming at me all week in my text, in my DMs, telling me, look how further inept this Jet team is, calling Chucky on the side behind Aaron Glenn's back, saying, do you want to be on the staff? Do you want the offensive coordinator position? And then he reportedly turned them down. Now, I hadn't heard this. People hitting me with it was the first I was actually hearing it. I was actually at work at the time, but my phone kept blowing up for these people, so I looked into it. And then, thankfully, he was on a podcast, I believe it was yesterday or Friday, where he stated himself, nobody reporting it or quoting, quoting. It was his words, his voice, unless it was Frank Cayendo doing John Gruden. It was John Gruden saying, you always hear a lot of rumors. You hear a lot of BS. Wishes the Jets well. They did not contact him. They did not reach out to him. So again, the lazy take that a lot of people took was, look at the Jets, inept Jets, calling John Gruden behind Aaron Glenn's back, and guy turns them down to their face. So now Aaron Glenn knows that they did that. First of all, you think that somebody would have called John Gruden and Aaron Glenn wouldn't have known about it. I know it's lazy to go the other route, but it's not logical. And it turns out by Gruden's own mouth, it wasn't true. It never happened. He was not contacted by the Jets. He didn't turn down the job with the Jets. Now, what might be interesting is maybe somebody did call him to say, hey, if this guy spits the bit this year, would you be interested in coaching the Jets in 2027? Now, I'm not saying that conversation happened. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. Because if the Jets do a good job of drafting and of signing free agents this offseason, but they still stink during the season, and all signs will, and all arrows and everything all fingers will be pointing right to Aaron Glenn, which is not a stretch because we just saw it. So if we see it again, but at least you're seeing Muji's doing a good job. He's bringing in the right players. He's signing the right players. He's drafting the right players. Glenn just not getting it done. Aaron Glenn is just not getting it done. So if that's the case, then maybe they did already start putting some feelers out there. Maybe that was what the phone call was. Don't come here now. Because how ridiculous would that be anyway? As soon as Gruden, if he would have been hired, the fans, if they were getting blown out by halftime in game one, we'd be at the door with pitchforks and saying, get him out of here, put Chucky in. That wasn't going to happen. It didn't make any sense, and it didn't happen. But it does make sense that they would have already put in his ear, hey, just saying, if you're interested to get back into coaching, if this guy spits the bit, this could be a very attractive job in 2027. simply because of what we've done in the past 2 off seasons. They did have a pretty solid draft last year, brought in some somewhat solid free agents, but this is supposed to be the off season where with the picks they have and the free agent cap space they have, that they continue to build that. So if that happens, and if they do build in that way, but they still are just inept, Glenn is out, maybe Gruden's in, maybe they go after Tomlin. But I think at that point, Woody would have to get off the first year head coach train. He has to. If Glenn fails again this year and he fires him and he brings in another first year head coach, all you're telling the fan base is this. You're giving them the middle finger, Woody, if you do that. Because you're basically saying, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to bring in someone who could question my authority and push back on me. I'll just keep bringing in these first-year coaches who are going to be so grateful that I gave them the chance. Then I'll just keep doing that until, and maybe eventually, one of them clicks. Well, again, there'll be plenty of time to get into that once the season starts. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if they definitely laid groundwork for Gruden, excuse me, and potentially for other people. I think they might have done it for other people as well. So the last thing I want to get, I'm not sure where it went to, is here we go. Mock draft season continues. This is something we'll talk about every week. We just had the Senior Bowl last week, and a player that has gotten a lot of press. He got a lot of press during and now after the Senior Bowl, or after the Senior Bowl practices, was Caleb Banks. That is somebody that I was hoping would drop to the Jets because the first pick of the second round. I thought he would be there for that. I don't think he will now. So I think if the Jets do want him and do target him, it will have to be with their second pick. I think 16 might be a little high for him. In some of the scenarios and some of the mocks I did, I actually traded down a few spots. So it wasn't so much of a reach at 16 for him. But again, I'm saying that and thinking that now. Who knows what after, we'll see the Senior Bowl. There'll be the Combine. There'll be the Pro Days. 16 may exactly be, because he was someone who came off an injury. So he needed the Senior Bowl to show that he was still that blue chip prospect. And he did. He went down there and dominated. So there's no reason, if he keeps doing what he's doing in the Combine and his Pro Day, maybe 16 is not far of a reach. I'm still favoring David Bailey with the first pick. Again, in the mock draft I did, I traded down a few spots so that 2 might be a little bit too much of a reach for Bailey from what I've read over the last week. Great pass rushing skills, but a little bit weak in other areas. But if you told me this guy's going to just line up and get 14, 15 sacks a year for the next 6, 8 years, I'll take him at 2. You can't, again, as I stated, you can't have any question marks at number 2. Number 2 has to be the most impactful player you can get at that spot. Period. There is no, we think he could develop. Yeah, okay. That's why you have other picks for that shit. The second pick has to be the most impactful player you could find at that position. And from everything I'm seeing, I know some people say, I think Bart Scott said it, Alvaro Reese might be the next, or like a Micah Parsons clone. No, I'm not seeing that. Again, as I stated last week, the fact that he struggled in the college football playoff against the better competition, really, that's a red flag for me. I'll let those people who watch tape and they're clocking measurables and all that stuff, you do what you do. I also try to, and what I do for a living, we like to tell our clients, we're also the arbiters of common sense. A lot of times it's people go off the rails for different things, and it becomes paralysis by analysis. Just sometimes use your common sense. If there's a guy who struggled against higher competition, but so I'm not sure what and he's kind of a tweener. Is he an edge player? Is he a linebacker? But now I got this guy who line him up without any coaching could get me 12 to 15 sacks a year without just based on what his current skill set is. And if I coach him up and build on that skill set, maybe he comes, 17, 18 a year. That's dominating. That they haven't had that in was it John Abraham? I know they had Calvin Pace, but Calvin Pace wasn't really that. And we want someone we found, we developed, and we grew him into that dominant of a player. That's what you're looking for at 2. Again, at 16, and for me in the mock drafts I go heavy defense. I've gone heavy defense on the mocks that I've done. I've done AJ Halsey from LSU, Igbenison from the cornerback from Ohio State. So I've done offense. The wide receiver I took was Jacoby Lane from USC. So with the trade backs that I'm doing, again, this is me doing it in a simulator. So for what that's worth, but that's what we have right now. Unless the Jets bring me into the war room and see if I could work my magic like Kevin Costner in draft day. Who knows? If you give me a shot, I'll give it a shot. But as of now, I'm using the simulators they have online, and I go heavy defense. Now, why did I go heavy defense? Because it's the most atrocious part of this team. It's just it's not even close. If you compare the 2 units, at least you can look at the offensive line. You have Garrett Wilson, you have Mechie, and why am I drawing a blank on his name? You have the why am I drawing a blank on the receiver they got? I'm getting old. I'm drawing a blank on the receiver that they got from Adonai Mitchell. There it is. Comes in and out. Lose my mind like I lost my hair. So it's Adonai Mitchell. You got Mechie. You drafted Arian Smith, who didn't really show much. You have Garrett Wilson. You have Mason Taylor. You have Jeremy Ruckert. You have Braylon Allen coming back. Isaiah Davis. You might bring back Breece Hall. I haven't heard much about it this offseason yet, but we wouldn't expect to. I don't know if they'll let him walk and just draft a running back in the later rounds. There's plenty of running backs in this draft to go after. So we'll see but I went heavy defense because they need help on the defensive line. They need help in the edge. They need help in the linebacking core because they're likely going to lose Quincy Williams, and they need help in the secondary. You have Malachi Moore, you'll have Stevens, so you have some guys that you will have. But again, defensive line, especially tackles, you traded away Quinnen. You need help there. You need help on your pass rushing, linebackers, and the second. So that's why I went heavy defense in this draft in my mocks. I think 5 of the first 6 picks, again, when I traded down, I accumulated extra picks. 5 of the first 6 picks had were defensive players. Safety, defensive tackle, linebacker, edge. You're trying to bring in this offseason is bringing in as much talent as you possibly can. Obviously, you want to do it on both sides of the ball, but the defensive side is really, really, really where it was lacking. It's not even close, people. Everybody, historically bad finish. No interceptions. I still can't believe that. You didn't even luck into one the whole season. No interceptions. It's Pop Warner defense. They need more help there. I don't know what they're going to be able to find in free agency because while they have a lot of money, they probably don't have to sign and bring in a whole lot of players because I believe it was Connor Hughes who said he did a survey of it might have been Samini who said this. They did a survey of the locker room as the season went on, and they were saying who did they see as players that could be helpful for the 2026 season, and they came up with around 20. So it's not even half your team is currently on the contract or on the roster, which means you're going to find it in a draft and in free agency. Now, maybe they'll have to keep more than 20, but that means they won't be out there just spreading the money to one or two big contracts. They might be able to do one big contract, but the rest of them will be, smaller, mid-sized contracts because they have a lot of holes to fill out. And again, it also depends who are they signing to do the. You brought in Duker, so basically it's Aaron Glenn. What is Aaron Glenn's defensive philosophy? That's going to be the direction they go. I think it's something they already started. I think that's why they brought in Phillips and Briggs, because those guys fit more of the style that Glenn wants to play. And I see them continuing to go in that direction. So does that mean that Sherwood gets the boot because the smaller, undersized linebacker doesn't fit into his scheme? I don't know. We'll see. Same thing on the offensive side. When you bring an offensive coordinator, what kind of scheme is he going to run? That then dictates what you need to do on that side of the ball. But as I mentioned earlier, they definitely have more chips on that side of the ball than they do on the defensive side. The problem will continuously be who the heck is going to be under center when the season starts. Because I don't think it'll be a rookie. I think they will draft a rookie in the later rounds. In my mock draft, I picked Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. I got him in the later. I think it was in the fourth round that I picked him, late third or early fourth round that I picked him. And again, don't hold me to, we don't have a pick in that round. I made trades in the simulator and got picks. Hopefully, someone in the Jet organization is watching this and figures out and tries to do the same. Move back, gain more picks. You need more assets. So I think, but there's no way you can't turn the reins over to a young quarterback year one. No way. What if you do draft one in this draft? You got to go in with the mindset that this kid is not playing at all in 2026. I don't care if people get hurt. If one of your backups gets hurt, go sign another journeyman to be the backup. That person has to stay unless they show you just amazing stuff in workouts and during the week. You just sit the guy. Just go in with the mindset. Go with a plan. If your plan is sit this guy no matter what, then that's the plan. Sits, develops. So it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in as a quarterback coach, because that person is going to have to start developing a young quarterback. Develop that person, sign a couple of veterans, just like the Giants did last year when they signed Wilson and Winston. Now, Dart was a higher draft pick that took the job over. The Jets, I don't think they're going to pick a quarterback that high that would warrant that same type of treatment. I think they'll pick someone in the later rounds that has a high ceiling and that they'll look to develop. And we'll see how that goes. But until then, I'll keep covering this. I'll keep covering the news of the week with you guys. Again, I thank everybody for the comments and the views on YouTube and especially on TikTok. Get a lot of interaction with my videos on TikTok, so I really appreciate that, guys. So in any event, I'll put my ticker there so you can see my handles on YouTube and TikTok. I'm working on setting up an IG one as well for you guys. But again, thank you for liking and subscribing. Keep the comments coming. Keep the views coming. I'm having a lot of fun right now because they're not playing. If they were playing, I wouldn't be having so much fun. So take care, everyone. If you're in the Northeast like I am, try to stay warm. And until next time, take care.